All right, here we go. It's time for the Green Bay Packers top 5 Joneses of all time, sponsored by Johnny Jones Brewing Company, sort of. Now, can you name the Jones on the left?
Yep.
Hopefully. That's James Jones. That's JJ. Can you name the Jones on the right? We just talked about Aaron Jones.
Yep.
Can you name the Jones in the middle?
No. He looks like a bear.
I got to tell you, it's sad. He's up in Canada right now trying to salvage his career, saying that football, he's not done with football yet, even though the NFL is pretty much done with him. And that is Dayton Jones, everybody.
Oh, God.
He did not make the list, but this is what he looked like 4 days ago in Montreal, Canada in the CFL.
Look at that gut.
He's looking rough. Poor guy. Now, he's not poor because he took plenty of the Packers' money as a first-round pick, but he looks sad and kind of in rough shape. So, I don't know. I don't wish anybody ill, but Dayton Jones was a first-round pick. He did not make the list. He had 9 sacks in 59 games over 4 seasons with the Packers. That's not enough production out of a first-round pick. I'm sorry. Sorry, Dayton. Sad. You did not make the list. Before we go any further, let's give you a couple of things about the list. Okay? Let's go back to this picture. Okay. A couple of interesting things about Packer Joneses here, Ben. Packer Joneses. Let's see. If you were to... The Green Bay Packers have been around for more than 100 years, correct?
Yep.
Over that time, you would expect to see, quite a few Joneses, right? I mean, a lot of players play for the Packers over 100 years. How many Joneses?
I don't remember too many. I would say...
Well, not many of them have been that impactful. I'll just say that.
10?
There were 18 Joneses
18,
over the history of the Green Bay Packers. 18. Of those 18, this was a pretty easy list to make because of those 18, only 10 of those 18 Joneses played more than 1 season with the Packers.
Oh, there you go. I just said 10 because that's what I was thinking.
8 of them only played 1 season. That's pretty sad.
Yeah.
The first Jones with the Green Bay Packers in history, the first Jones was, let me do this. Sorry, I didn't know you were big there. Bruce Jones. He was an offensive guard out of Alabama. Bruce Jones in 1927 and 1928 with the Green Bay Packers. That was the first ever Jones.
I would not have remembered him.
And the most recent Jones, of course, is Caleb Jones, who joined last year. He's a tackle out of Indiana. So there's a couple of overall Jonesy type statistics for you, or factoids about Packers and the Joneses. 18 in the history of the Green Bay Packers. All right, Dayton didn't make it, but this guy did. Number 5.
Wow, number 5
in the history of the Green Bay Packers. Top 5 Joneses is, that's right, Josh Jones. Safety, Josh Jones. And you may ask yourself, well, how in the hell did Josh Jones make this list? And let me just tell you, he didn't have a lot of competition for spot number 5, okay? Now, there was a man named Terry Jones back in 78 to 84, a D tackle, but he didn't play a heck of a lot. He was more of a backup, played in a handful of games, had, some sacks in there a little bit, but didn't really do a lot in 6 seasons with the Packers. There was, of course, Dayton. He wasn't making it. And most of the other guys, a couple seasons, backup guys. So there haven't been a lot of stellar Joneses over the course of more than 100 years with the Packers. But Josh Jones, here, let's look at what he did, okay? He had 29 games on the team, 29 games with the team, 12 starts, only 12 starts. It's 1,232 snaps on defense for Josh Jones. Now, we all knew him. He was a high pick, second-round pick. He was a monster, right? Because he's like 6'2", 220, and fast. Yeah, that was what we kept hearing. He was this beast kind of hybrid guy. They were excited about him. And he had
an amazing game against the Bengals
because they unleashed him and they gave him no responsibilities. We're like, go make tackles, and that's what he did, right?
Yep.
He also did some other things. 7 passes defended in those 12 starts, 29 games, 1,232 snaps. Now that's roughly about the amount of snaps in a season for most guys. Maybe it's a little bit more than like a full season of snaps. Because most guys are around 1,000 snaps per season, 900 something to 1,000. So I
guess a starting safety, yes.
So this is like basically, if you look at the by snaps and not because it's 12 starts, 29 games, but look at the snaps. So that's maybe like, I don't know, 18 games, 19 games, something like that. So just a little bit more than a season. This was his production. 7 passes defended. He did have an interception. He had 3 sacks. He had 126 tackles. So they didn't all come in that one game against the Bengals. He had 126 tackles. That's a lot of tackles in roughly the equivalent of 18, 19 games from a safety. And he had 7 tackles for a loss. And as I say on here, he may have been a moron, but I think he was more impactful than the current 4-year starter we have at safety. Like, it was just so striking with what they did with him in that game against Cincinnati. And you just saw it, and then they never did that again. And you were just like, why? He just showed you what he's good at, and it made a difference in the game and the way your defense played. Like,
they tried to play him at deep safety, and he should have been the slot corner or the slot defender guy.
Yeah.
Or maybe they could have just moved him to like nickel, nickel.
Because even if he wouldn't have been, even if you wouldn't think he's the best cover guy for the slot, you could get physical with the slot receivers. Like, he can beat the hell out of them. He's a big, fast dude.
He actually reminds me. Well, no, he actually doesn't. But I mean, he's kind of like Rasul Douglas without the brains and with speed. But he was a good tackler and he was aggressive.
Yeah. Yep.
Where Rasul is aggressive and a good tackler, but he doesn't have the speed. But he makes up for it with super smarts. Like if Rasul had Josh Jones's body and physical skills, he'd be unstoppable.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Or the vice versa. If Josh Jones had Rasul's brains, he would have been amazing. Like probably one of the best safeties the Packers have ever had, which we obviously went through the list back when you made that list. There was actually quite a few, but I mean, when you got to put a wide receiver at a top safety in your career or in your 100 years history, it's not that greatest. But anyways, yeah, Josh Jones. It's weird that we've only had he's number 5, but I believe you.
There was nobody better. I'll tell you that. All right, so let's get back into the list here. Again, we'll move on from Darnell Savage. Number 4, you might remember, linebacker Brad Jones. Brad Jones played for the Packers from 2009 to 2014. 76 games, 36 starts. He had 7 passes defended. He had 3 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, 20 quarterback hits in those 36 starts, 10 sacks for Brad Jones, 258 tackles. He was a pretty solid tackler, right? And 26 tackles for a loss. So, not bad. I summed it up here. Solid player for 6 seasons. He won a Super Bowl ring. Now, he was part of the IR group in 2010. He was on the team then, but he didn't get to play because he was out with an injury, but he still got the Super Bowl ring, so he still is a Super Bowl champion. And he once tackled the 15-year-old fan who ran onto Lambeau Field, as pictured here. Wow. And when asked after the game, why did he tackle that youngster, that young man who just wanted to jump and run around the Lambeau Field on a cold day? He said, well, I mostly did it because I was cold and I wanted somebody's body heat near me and wanted to warm up a little bit. That's what he said. I don't know why. I don't know if that's true enough. That's a quote he gave after the game. As a side note, Brad Jones he's on LinkedIn. He's 37 years old now, and he's doing successful in business. So congrats to him. But he was a pretty solid Packer, and he's number 4 on the top 5 Packer Joneses of all time.
He was also a pretty smart guy. I remember interviews with him. He seemed very intelligent. I think he was drafted the same year as Clay Matthews. So they drafted 2 outside linebackers that season, and he was part of the group with Frank Zombo and Eric Walden and Clay Matthews, and that was a really good group of young guys who attacked and played good at outside linebacker. And they could do both things. They could cover with his 7-pass defense and all that sort of thing. He could cover a little bit, but also rush the quarterback and play his zone and all that kind of stuff, which is something that, to be quite honest, the Packers, the guys at Goody drafts can't do and signs. And I think that actually hurts our defense. And a lot of people complain about, saying our defense is bad and whatever, and they have all these first-round picks. And yes, they do. But they don't play the defense they don't draft the guys based on the defense they want to run half the time. So, I don't know. Like, Rashawn Gary he can't drop back in coverage. Preston Smith is terrible at it. Luke Van Ness is never going to drop back in coverage, I would assume, unless he drops back like a B.J. Raji type thing in the middle of the field and sits there. But on the opposite of that, Eric Walden, Frank Zombo, Brad Jones, and Clay Matthews all could drop back in coverage and come at it any time, and you wouldn't know which guy was coming from which way. So Yeah, he was a good, solid guy. He was never like a superstar or anything, but solid player. Good Packer for his career with us. And yeah, I have fond memories of Brad Jones.
He was also nearly number 3 of the top 5. This was the hardest. Like I said, this is a pretty easy list to make. But this was the hard choice between number 4 and number 3. I almost went with him for number 3 because he had 6 seasons on the team, 258 tackles and 26 tackles for a loss. Nothing to sneeze at. Okay. He also won the Super Bowl. So anyway, but I had to give the nod as the number 3
Honolulu
Packer. Number 3 Jones of all time for the Green Bay Packers is Sean Jones. Sean Jones. He only played 3 seasons on the Packers towards I think it was the last 3 of his career, 94 to 96. 47 games where he had 47 starts. I had to give him the nod because he had some really
sacks.
Impactful plays. He had 10.5 sacks his first season with the Packers, 9 his second season, and then he only had 5 in his last season, which was the season they won the Super Bowl, ironically. But he had 7 forced fumbles and 5 fumble recoveries in those 3 seasons. That's quite a bit of impactful turnover plays on defense. He also scored a defensive touchdown. And, 24.5 sacks for the Pack, 113 for his career. That factored in a little bit for me just looking at the players because they were close in my mind. And 145 tackles for a defensive end in 3 years is pretty darn good.
Well, that's because everybody ran at him instead of running at Reggie.
Well, yeah. I get it. But they also played a 4-3, a little different than so he's kind of playing like where the outside linebackers would be, so it's kind of similar. Now, some other notes. He was old, but still a pretty good player for those 3 seasons. Won the Super Bowl in 1996 with the team. And that Super Bowl, to me, a little more probably, not a little more impactful for the fan base because it had been so long than the one in 2010. And then the last point on here is really what also helped give him the nod, which is he referenced himself as a Pro Bowler in more ways than anyone else ever has in the history of all time. I've never heard anyone talk in one interview reference themselves as a Pro Bowler as many times and in so many ways as Sean Jones did. And that also helped give him the nod over Brad Jones for the number 3 spot.
And it also gave him the nickname Honolulu Jones.
Well, yeah. Honolulu, Hawaii.
Pro Bowler.
I'm a Pro Bowler. I'm on the sandy beach. The waves are rolling in. He did it all. He said it all. It was amazing. Anyway, so he's number 3. Sean Honolulu Jones, number 3 on the list. So far, how do we feel? How do we feel about... Viking Mo's in here. Viking Mo. Why was that a hard choice? Sean Jones, much more... Well, come on. You want me... Brad Jones was a good...
I have to agree. I don't know how you could
player.
think.
He tackled a 15-year-old person that ran on the field.
He had 10 sacks in 6 seasons. Sean Jones had 24.5 sacks in
26 TFLs, Ben, and 20 quarterback hits for him.
Okay.
All right, fine. All right. That was the toughest choice. Number 2 is James Jones. Now we get to the really good Jones. Do you realize how good James... Does anybody really remember how good James Jones was for the Packers?
No, because he had a lot of easy drops. So you
forget
did. The good plays he had.
Well, this is what he did. This is his career statistics. 120 games. He was on the Packers from 2007 to 2013, and then once again in 2015 when they had no receivers, and he came back and saved their season and became their go-to receiver.
And made the Pro Bowl with 14 touchdown catches and a hoodie.
Not that year. That was 2012. He had 14. Here, it's all on here. 120 games, 62 starts for James Jones. 360 catches for 5,195 yards. And
a lot of big plays. And he would break tackles.
A career average of 14.4 yards per catch. That's way more than Davante Adams.
Dwarfs Davante Adams. But Davante Adams is the most dominant player Aaron Rodgers ever played with.
Mm-hmm.
Yet James Jones dwarfs his stats.
And James Jones, like we've talked about before, again, not that fast. Somehow he got deep on guys and beat them sometimes. He'd make all the tough catches. And he had strong hands, and he could run. He was one of the best in my lifetime as a Packer fan, one of the best receivers that I've ever seen run after the catch in terms of, not just speed because he didn't have the speed, but he could break tackles. He could run through, like the most physical runner other than Sterling Sharp, that I remember my Packer lifetime as a wide receiver running after the catch.
I would agree. Just a lot of guys bounced off him. A lot of his big plays where he was covered and the ball would come and it was a great pass by Aaron Rodgers and he'd catch it with a guy.
He was never that open.
No, he was never open. And there's a guy hanging all over him, but James Jones would secure it with two arms and he'd usually catch it with both of his arms, with his forearms. He didn't catch with his hands a lot of times, to be quite honest. But that's better than Antonio. That's why when Antonio broke his arm that one time, remember, Antonio could still catch because he could never catch with his hands anyway. So he always caught with his arms. So that's why with Antonio with a broken arm didn't matter that year. Mo remembers Antonio. Remember that game against the Vikings, Mo, when Antonio caught the ball that bounced off the one guy and he caught it on his back and then he picked it up and ran in for the end zone. Remember that, Mo? Anyways. But James Jones was similar to Antonio, except he had the girth and the sizability of a guy who could just bounce. Guys just bounced off him. Corners bounced off him. They didn't bring him down. And that's why he had so many
jerk face. Right. He was pretty awesome.
That's why he had all those yards. Yeah.
So
I think he dropped less balls than Devontae Adams over his career by a lot.
Maybe.
Whatever.
Devontae
Adams is so great.
He made some pretty impressive tough catches. Now get this here.
Yeah.
45 touchdowns. So 360 catches, over 5,000 yards, and 45 touchdowns. That's pretty damn good. 14 touchdowns in 2012. He had led the team with 14 touchdowns in 2012. His last season when he came back and they had nobody because Jordy got hurt, he had, when he was the primary target, 50 catches, 890 yards, and 8 touchdowns after everybody cast him aside, didn't want him. The Giants didn't want him. The Raiders didn't want him. Nobody wanted him. And that season, he had 17.8 yards per catch, Ben. That 50 for 890 is 17.8 yards per catch.
And now he's on an NFL Network and a great ambassador for the Packers.
He also had one solo tackle in his career as a Packer.
Probably off Aaron Rodgers' interception.
And no, it was early on, I think, of special teams. And he brought out the hoodie power. The hoodie power of James Jones in 2015. Who could forget?
Yeah.
He's a great Packer.
It was great.
Is he not in the Packer Hall of Fame yet?
I doubt it. Seems how Jordy is first getting in there this year, so I would assume that Jordy would make it before James Jones.
I'm going to say it right here. James Jones, get him in the Packer Hall of Fame for crying out loud. Right?
Yeah.
He deserves it. He deserves to be in there. Super Bowl champion as well. I forgot that. He's Super Bowl champion too.
Yeah.
God dang it. James Jones, pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. So we finally got to some of the better Joneses here as we got to the top of the list. Hoodie, they love the hoodie. Okay, well, there's only one Jones left. I'm sure you know who it is. He really is. It's Aaron Jones, everybody. Aaron Jones is the number one Packer Jones in the history of the Green Bay Packers. Of course, he's been on the team since 2017 to present. Look at what this young man, still young man, has done. 86 games, 74 starts. He has, get these statistics. This is mind-boggling. 1,035 carries for 5,284 yards. And of those 5,284 yards, he has 2,229 yards after contact on rushing attempts. And I'm going to give you a little bit more on that in a minute. He has 242 catches for 1,843 yards. And on his receiving yards, he has 1,878 yards after the catch.
Which makes no sense.
He actually
Aaron Rodgers can't throw the ball downfield ever. That doesn't make any sense.
It's correct.
That's not right.
When you looked at his,
right.
Yes, it is right because I looked at the statistics and his average air yard per reception is negative. It's a negative air yard per reception. So he has more yards after the catch than he actually has yards gained receiving because he caught so many balls behind the line of scrimmage, which is normal for a running back. I get it, but that's what I thought was a funny statistic. And
that's just stupid. I got to be honest. Why isn't he at least 5 yards downfield? All these like these freaking outlet passes to him when he's 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
He could run over the middle and beat somebody. Oh, but we don't want to throw
the angle route, when he comes out of the backfield and takes it back to the middle of the field.
That's a Rodgers thing
every
too.
time. Yeah, Rodgers will throw in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
That's hopefully we'll see that with this year with Jordan Love.
There you go.
That's a stupid stat. If that's a true stat, that's stupid.
It is. I looked all this stuff up. 60 touchdowns in those 6 seasons. 43 rushing. And get this, he has 350 first downs. So that's rushing and receiving first downs. But 300, like a lot of times running backs will get catches as a dump off when you can't get, the first down and they don't get it. So 350 first downs on his, 1,270 attempts with the ball. It's pretty damn good. So basically every 25 plus percent, he'll get a first down if you give him the ball.
Yeah. I mean, what do you want me to
and
say?
David points out a lot of those times 12 threw it at his feet. That's right. Simply put, he's the man. And of course, we know his crazy yards per carry, 5.1 yards per carry for his career. That's just nutso. Nobody can touch that.
Nobody's close.
Much, right?
Only
Nobody.
Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has more. And I think it's what's his name? Jim Brown, who just passed away this year. I think it's like just those two guys who have more yards per carry than him, with players with 100 carries or more in their careers. Yet Aaron Jones gets no respect. I just saw something today. They had a list of running backs. Aaron Jones was listed at 17 for this season coming up.
Ridiculous. Look at this.
Are you
based
kidding
on
me?
What? Look at what he's done.
That's ridiculous. And then another list, they had him at like 8. I'm like, no. The guy's like number 1. He just doesn't get opportunities. If he got as many opportunities as Dalvin Cook or all these other guys or Christian McCaffrey was rated number 1 for some unknown reason, even though he's hurt all the damn time. I mean, Aaron Jones is the best. He's the best. The best combination of man and player in the NFL today is Aaron Jones. And the fact that he was nominated 2 years in a row for the Walter Payton Man of the Year and didn't win is a travesty, and they should have nominated him again this year. Yeah, and he better win this year because ridiculous. That's bull crap. 3 years in a row, and if he doesn't win, they better nominate him again. And this time, tell everybody, get it right. Get it right. He deserves it.
He's a great teammate, as I put here, and remember, he is the winner of our BPR Best Packer Representative by far, Aaron Jones.
Yeah,
Aaron Jones is so good as being the top Jones on this list, top 5 Packer Joneses of all time. He needs 2 boards. Here's something else I wanted to show you here real quick. This is what I was talking about before. So Aaron Jones, this is his seasons right here, okay? This is some statistic, 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22. And you can see the attempts, you can see the yards, you can see the first downs here, but you can also see yards before contact is the YBC and the yards after contact. So this is yards before contact on attempt, and yards after contact is the YAC rushing and the YAC per attempt. So if you look right here, in 2019, he had 48% of his yards after contact. 2020, he had 592 of his 1,104 yards after contact. That's 54%. 21, it was almost 50% at 49%. And last season, he had 43% of his yards after contact. He is 5'9", 208 pounds. And this guy, for his career, has almost, basically it's like 45, 46% of his yards after contact. Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. He's a ridiculous
he's the
person
best.
in an awesome way. He's good.
He's the best. He's the best of all time.
So that is the top 5 Packer Joneses of all time. Just to recap, let's give a quick recap here. Here's what we have. We have number 1, Aaron Jones, running back, Ben's favorite Packer. Number 2, James Jones, wide receiver, Hoodie Power. That's right, number 2, James Jones. Number 3, narrowly, was Sean Jones. Honolulu, Hawaii, Pro Bowler, on the beach in February. Honolulu, Sean Jones. Number 4 was Brad Jones, who just missed it, but a solid Super Bowl champ while on IR. And number 5 was Josh Jones, better than Darnell Savage, but cut. That is my top 5 Packer Joneses of all time. What do you say about that?
Well, I would say it's a pretty sad list.
What?
There's 2 good guys on there, James Jones and Aaron Jones. I'm surprised we didn't have more good Joneses, like just one that snuck around from somewhere.
I know. It's pretty crazy.
Wasn't there like an offensive lineman named Jones who was kind of good or something once in a while, like in the 80s or something? No?
Nope. I told you, 8 of them only played one season. I wasn't giving those guys any of the nod.
Well, who are the other 5 guys that played more besides Dayton Jones?
Terry, Daryl, who was a backup cornerback. There were a couple other guys that only played like 2 seasons. Some in the 80s, some in the 70s, 60s, stuff like that. None of them were and they didn't have the starts. They didn't have the game action. So this was it. I know it's surprising to me. I thought over 100 years, Jones is a pretty common name. You would have thought that there would be more guys on the team. But the thing about this that I learned is Josh Jones wasn't as bad as we probably thought.
Well, I knew that. I said that.
And James Jones was a lot better than I think I realized.
I think he was pretty good. I think he's
not saying he's like all-star receiver, but he's pretty damn good.
But he was a top, I would say he was a top 60 receiver in the NFL during his time, which is a starter at one of the 2 spots at receiver.
Mm-hmm.
But he was always like 3rd on the depth chart. That's the other thing. He had 45 touchdowns on a team with Greg Jennings and Donald Driver and Jordy Nelson and, Randall Cobb and all these guys on the team with him. And he still had 45 touchdowns over all those years when he was always usually the 3rd and sometimes 4th guy. So that says a lot for him. And then Aaron Jones, think about his stats, what his stats would look like if he actually was used his first 2 seasons instead of sitting on the bench because Mike McCarthy was stupid. I mean, come on, Aaron Jones would be destroying everybody. And he gets no respect, and it pisses me off. But that's the thing that's different between me and Aaron Jones. If Aaron Jones had my mentality, he'd be pissed all the time because he gets no damn respect, and people freaking cut him, take him for granted, and he takes less money for people and all this kind of stuff. But Aaron Jones is such a good guy; he doesn't let that stuff bother him. He's just happy to be in the NFL. He's happy to be a member of the Packers. He's happy to represent the Green Bay Packers. He's a proud person. He's happy to be. He loves the fans of Green Bay. Like I said, he's a Donald Driver of this generation. And it's exciting to see him now be the leader of the team pretty much until Jordan Love can pick it up and hopefully become a good guy, though he's got to stop hanging out with Wiener Boy. But anyways, and those are all things that are great. And it's nice to see Aaron Jones be like the face of the team. And it's the first time in quite a few years where I'm excited. I'm excited to just watch games again. I hope they use him properly. But not just him, everybody on the team. AJ Dillon, all the guys. I hope they use all the guys properly. I want to see everybody be successful. I want to see them get the ball in advantageous situations. No more. I mean, when you have more receiving yards, basically, like you said, from catch point than actual yards in the stat book, that's sad.
That's stupid.
That's just sad because I can remember a couple of nice deep touchdowns he had.
Yeah.
So that just means most of his catches that aren't deep touchdowns are always be like 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage or 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, which is just stupid. I mean, that's the dumbest stat I've ever seen. 1,874, 1,843. That doesn't make any sense to anybody. That's like a stat where like Brett Favre, his first pass to completed to was himself. It's true, right? But it makes no sense. So I don't know.
And a guy you give the ball to, I mean, you give him the ball and 25% of the time he gets a first down. Over his career. This is not like one game. This is not a couple games. It's not a season. This is 74 starts, 86 games. A quarter of the time he touches the ball, it's a first down. That's pretty damn impressive.